What's up, everyone? Welcome into Stadium Drive Week 7. We're here at Indian Valley High School in the IVC. We're branching out finally, and we've got the Indian Valley Braves taking on the Garaway Pirates. Will Ford, Aaron Sprague. Aaron, it's super exciting to kind of branch out of the MVL a little bit, get into the IVC, and this is a big-time rivalry. And we were talking about the history on the way up here and everything, and this is just such a big game, and we're really excited to watch it tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Garaway has beat a lot of teams up over the years, so it's always great when you get a game on the schedule, like especially in the regular season, that this could be a good matchup. Indian Valley, a very strong story tradition here in Janaden Hutton, and, of course, Garaway just keeps reloading every year. You know, last year they had the best, or one of the best seasons in school history. They graduated a ton. And here we are back again, undefeated with one of the best defenses in the state.
Yeah, and they've outscored opponents this season by a wide margin, 300 and, oh gosh, I don't even know. It's several hundred points to a very little amount of points. I'd have to look it up, but they are just doing a fantastic job this year shutting out opponents. I actually have a graphic here. Let me read it real quick. They are shutting out teams, let's see, 233 to 38. So they are dominating teams, and it's the offense and it's the defense. So Indian Valley's got a tough test tonight because the last two times they played, Garaway shut them out. So I think it's going to be important for Indian Valley to try and not only score points but just keep Garaway's offense off the field.
Yeah, and talking about that history, we went back through the last 10 years. It's a split, 5-5. The last 3 years are 3-3. Last 6 years are 3-3. Now, with that being said, Garaway has won the last 3.
Yes.
So Garaway is riding a 3-game winning streak in this series, but it is always a great matchup. And I tell you what, this facility at Indian Valley is top-notch.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Brand new, opened in 2020, the COVID season, the shortened 5-game regular season. It opened then. If you remember, before the Braves would play over in Midvale at old historic stadium, kind of run down a little bit. Had a nice nostalgic feel for sure, but it wasn't this. This facility here is gorgeous. The backdrop is phenomenal. The leaves are just starting to change in this Ohio fall weather. But once they start changing, this is going to be a set from a movie.
It's funny, when we come to games, it's always kind of like warm, sun's out, it's in our eyes, and then as soon as the game starts, it just immediately gets a little bit cooler, and you can really sense that fall air creeping in. And I know by the time Week 10 rolls around, we'll be doing this show in hoodies, beanies.
Gosh.
It'll be a little bit colder.
We will. Well, even as soon as the sun sets, it's going to start cooling off, no doubt about it. But this is probably the premier game in the area that we're concerned about. And, well, we're covering well over 25 plus 20 games, I think closer to 25 games across the state tonight. We also have another big game in the MVL where we have interviews from those coaches as well.
Yes, so we're covering Philo and Sheridan. Philo's 5-1, Sheridan undefeated 6-0, and both teams are playing pretty well right now. And so we figured we'd have to give mention to that game because I do think that's a big game. And it's another test for Sheridan. You know, they're on the road to 10-0 undefeated, and Philo's just trying to shock the rest of the MVL and take down Sheridan. And I think it's just like the top teams in the MVL right now, they're kind of entering the gauntlet as far as their schedule goes. Like they've got
they're in
Tri-Valley's coming up for both teams, and Maysville for Philo at the end of the year. That's a big rivalry game. And
they're just now in the portion of their schedule, right? So the big school and small school. So now all the big schools are playing the big schools down the stretch, and that everyone has, like every season, the Tri-Valley Sheridan game circled on the calendar. As it feels, that's probably going to come down to the league title. We'll see if someone can shock someone along the way.
Right.
But, for instance, John Glenn is at Maysville in a big school matchup.
Yep.
In that one, John Glenn got a big bounce-back win last week against Meadowbrook. And then, of course, Sheridan and Philo. And then Tri-Valley is hosting – come on.
Oh, man.
Come on.
Tri-Valley.
I went blank.
Tri-Valley's hosting Riverview.
There we go. Okay. So, Tri-Valley probably going to have a pretty good night the way things are rolling there with their program. So, but it is awesome to be in Week 7.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to Indian Valley for hosting us and allowing us to be here.
And also a big thank you to Max Effort Muscle as well, our sponsor for this show, Stadium Drive. Best tasting protein around. I say it every week, but I truly mean it because it's really delicious stuff.
Banana cream pie.
And more T-shirts to give out to the Indian Valley student section here tonight to thank them for having us here. So, I mean, the student sections are always just so loud and proud. Whatever school we go to, they're always just so not only supportive of their football team, but of us too. They love seeing us here.
Absolutely. And another shout out for any of you parents out there looking to get in shape. Not only do we have the Max Effort Muscle products, but Corey G Fitness, Corey Gregory, his fitness app, Corey G Fitness. If you're looking to get in shape, whether you're a beginner or an advanced, check out his app because this is his product. He's the guy getting everyone in shape. So if you're looking to get in shape or stay in shape this offseason, hit him up. But week 7, we're crazy pumped. Counting tonight, there's 4 weeks of the regular season left, and then we hit the playoffs. So really excited to share our interviews with you that we have tonight. And we're also going to be interviewing an Indian Valley, the student body president, the senior class president, to get her perspective on this rivalry. And
she'll join the show around 6:15-ish or so. Stop by, and we'll chat with her, which will be really fun. Obviously, the premier game tonight that we're covering, Indian Valley Garaway, but we want to hop in and kind of preview, give a little teaser for Philo Sheridan tonight as well, because that's a big game in the MVL. So let's start with the home team, the Philo Electrics, and Dirk Lincecum talking about getting ready for Sheridan, and then we'll follow it up with Paul Culver III of the Generals. But thanks so much for tuning in to Stadium Drive here on Storied Rivals, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
So we're here with head coach Dirk Lincecum of the Philo Electrics going into week 7. It's crazy that we're this far into the season already, but coach, I really appreciate your time. And this last 4 weeks of the season that we're going into, you kind of entering a gauntlet, so to speak, because you got Sheridan this week, who's undefeated 6-0. The following week, you have Tri-Valley 4-2, John Glenn, who's 5-1 right now after that in week 9. And then you have Maysville, who's 2-4, but they've been playing teams really tough this year, in week 10. And obviously, I know you don't like to look ahead. You like to look at the matchup in front of you, but what excites you about the challenges of going up against these premier teams in the MVL over the last couple of weeks of the season, and specifically Sheridan, this Friday?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Will. There's a lot of things to be excited about. Certainly, big games are always exciting, games that mean something, and there's a lot to gain and there's a lot to lose. So it's the whole reason we do this. It's that we get to play in games like this. Of course, if there's no possibility of failure, defeat is kind of meaningless. And certainly, as you pointed out, these next few weeks, there's a possibility for defeat if we don't play well in each of these 4 games. None of these games are pushovers by any stretch. And you mentioned that Maysville's 2-4. That's a rivalry game for us. So you can throw records out the window there. And as you pointed out, John Glenn's only loss is to the Sheridan team that we're about to play. And that was a close game. So, refocusing to this week, Sheridan, they're tough. They're the number 1 team in Region 15. They're 6-0. That doesn't happen by accident. Obviously, you got to be able to score points and stop people from scoring points to get to 6-0. So, offensively and defensively, they're tough. They've got. They're very well coached. Coach Culver does a great job, and his whole staff. They have a great tradition. So we definitely have our hands full Friday. Our kids are going to have to play very well. They're going to have to really stay focused on what their piece of the pie is and doing their job, trying to defend option and triple option and their passing game. They have a quarterback that throws the ball really well to some really talented receivers, and he's a good runner, and he also has a good tailback to hand it off to. So for them up front, really good offensive line across the board. They're big, they're physical, they're athletic. So anybody that has Sheridan on the schedule knows that they've got to step up and play, if not their best game of the year, one of their best games of the year, to have a chance to win that game. So a lot of respect for Coach Culver and his program.
Now, we've talked about your quarterback, Talon Preston, before. He had 2 rushing touchdowns last week. He's just a great runner on the ground, physical guy. And you've talked before, don't take the playmaker out of the playmaker. Like, he is just truly a playmaker for you. But Talon Bailey has been great as well in the backfield. He had 117 yards and a touchdown in your 32-0 win over Crooksville. I'm sure it's a luxury to have like 2 great physical, skilled runners of the football in the backfield for your offense.
Yeah, we are blessed. We do have a couple juniors that are very talented. They play extremely hard. Sometimes I wish my quarterback wouldn't play as physical as he does. I wish he would step out of bounds sometimes. But as you said, we've talked about that. I don't dislike that about him. I just try to keep him on a short leash as far as how much contact he has, but the way he plays the game, there's no avoiding some bumps and bruises. With Talon Bailey, really tough physical kid. He's just a 5'7" brick, and he's a wrestler, so he's really good with his hips and bounces off of people. So really hard to tackle. So yeah, just really glad and blessed to have both those guys. They practice hard, they play hard, and they're both good individuals. So I feel very blessed to have them on my team and be able to coach them.
Now, just from following your team this year, I mean, I've been very impressed with the defense. Drew Wright is just all over the field defensively, generating pressure, getting to the quarterback, getting sacks. It seems like he's got at least a couple sacks every week. And then Seth Henning, he's just got a nose for the football. Whenever it's in the red zone, he always finds a way to come up with a clutch interception for you and just change the way a game is going, and really turn the tide for your Electrics. Like, what do you like about, obviously, those two guys just being leaders on your defense, but the way your defense has performed as a whole? Because we know about the offense, we know about Preston and Bailey, but like this defense, I feel like has kind of been a very good story for your team as well this year as you're 5-1.
Yeah, really happy with the way both of our defensive ends are playing right now. Drew Wright certainly is, in the stat book, he's just got a ton of sacks this year, and he's just really good at finishing the play and not stopping until the whistle's blown. That's on both sides of the ball. Our other defensive end is a sophomore named Camden Stoner, who is another big, tall, lanky kid that can knock down passes. He's got a fast move off the edge. He does a good job of the ride down and fighting the reach. So really happy with the way our defensive ends are playing. And then you mentioned Seth. I think we're going to get tested this week with Sheridan. I think we're going to have to be on top of our game. Seth is going to have to come up with, some of those key plays on the ball to keep Sheridan out of the end zone, because, as I said earlier, they can pound it at you, or they can sit back and throw it over top of you. So you got to be well-rounded in all areas defensively. I think our linebackers have played well this year also. We got a couple of seniors there with Braden Bleakney and Austin Tysinger, who've played extremely hard for us, and a junior with Braden Bernard and a sophomore, Jake Savage, that have kind of rotated through there, and each one of those guys has really performed well for us. So we really like what we've seen out of our defense. It was nice to be able to pitch a shutout last week. That was our first one of the year. But our defense has kept us in some games that we've ended up being able to win when our offense maybe wasn't clicking. So having a defense that can keep you close until you start clicking is really important, certainly as we get down the stretch here, as you pointed out this week with Sheridan and then the weeks following. So, excuse me, just trying to keep those guys healthy and in one piece, and develop those guys behind them so that the next man in is ready to go, and hopefully we don't have to miss a beat. We can have full faith and confidence in anybody that's out there running in our scheme. So, yeah, it's been good for us so far. We definitely have some big challenges ahead, but we'll meet those challenges and we'll do the best that we can.
Now, I'm curious how much film you're using of the John Glenn Sheridan game, because I feel like the John Glenn offense is sort of similar to your offense in the sense that you have two guys running the football primarily. Like for John Glenn, they have Winland and Gilcher, and then you have Preston and Bailey. Those two guys carry the football the most, and both your team and John Glenn primarily a running football team. But John Glenn wasn't able to find the end zone against Sheridan. They lost 14-0. I'm curious how much of that film you're using to kind of mold and shape your game plan, and maybe ways to attack Sheridan's defense that John Glenn didn't, so that way you can get into the end zone and have a bit more success than John Glenn did this Friday.
Yeah, well, I think it's a tall task for anybody to get in the end zone against Sheridan. Certainly, John Glenn was really close a couple times. And I guess to answer your question, yeah, we do look at that film a lot. We look at all of our trade films a lot, and then we also pull up last year's film and go through that and look for, things that we can take advantage of, and personnel that are returning starters and guys that are first-year players, or, maybe just guys that have filled in. So we use a lot we use Huddle a lot to analyze our opponents. With the John Glenn film, I think John Glenn played really tough. I think they had a couple opportunities certainly that could have turned into points, and for whatever reason they weren't able to punch it in. So there's something that you can learn from every game that you have. I think John Glenn played him really physical up front. They fought with him. Their linebackers made lots of plays. John Glenn's got a good secondary. Their safeties are really active. They're good tacklers. They're athletic. So, it's a body of work that Sheridan's had this year, and the John Glenn game definitely part of it.
Well, we're looking forward to watching the game this Friday, Coach. I really appreciate you taking the time, and best of luck. This game this Friday against undefeated Sheridan, but the rest of the way as well, because like we mentioned, it's definitely a tough last couple of weeks, and then you round it out with that rivalry game against Maysville. So best of luck, and we really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, and appreciate what you do for our kids to get them some notoriety and get them some attention for the hard work that they put in. So thank you, guys.
Love talking to Dirk of the Philo Electrics here on Stadium Drive. They're 5-1, taking on Sheridan, who's 6-0 tonight in the MVL. Big game. But the game that we're at tonight, we're at Indian Valley High School in Janeda Hutton, and they're taking on the Braves are taking on the Garaway Pirates, who are 6-0 themselves. Indian Valley's 4-2. And it's just such a big IVC game and a huge rivalry. And me and Aaron talked about it at the beginning of the show. You look at the last 10 years. I mean, this rivalry, it's 5-5. These teams have just been going back and forth. Garaway's won the last 3. The 3 before that, Indian Valley, and then back and forth the remaining 4 years. So big game, huge rivalry. And it's going to be a tough test, I think, for both teams. And it's probably the biggest challenge that Garaway will have faced this season. And if we take a look at just how dominant Garaway has been, because it's just, you look at this number and you're like, this can't be real. But through the first 6 weeks, outscoring opponents, the Pirates are 233-38. And they've only had 3 offensive turnovers all season long. They do not give the ball away. They put up points. They stop people on defense. They're not going to win the time of possession battle a lot of times, but their defense just sets up their offense so well with short drives. They get in the end zone quick. Defense, offense just playing so well all season long, and it's just a big reason why they've been so successful this year. And we're going to talk with the head coaches of both Garaway and Indian Valley here in a few minutes. But let's get to head coach Paul Culver with the Sheridan Generals, getting ready for the Philo Electrics, because this is definitely a big test for the Generals. 6-0 on the path to 10-0 right now, and they've got a tough couple of weeks up ahead with Philo tonight, and then they have Tri-Valley coming up after that, and just such big games. Not only is it trying to get to 10-0, but it's being strong, playing strong, being healthy going into Week 11 and the playoffs. Both of these teams, the Electrics and the Generals, are looking to make the playoffs, and they're in prime position to do so. But here is head coach Paul Culver of the Sheridan Generals getting ready for Dirk Lincecum and the Philo Electrics here on Stadium Drive. And then when we come back, we'll have a special guest, and we'll preview more of this game between the Pirates and the Braves here on Storied Rivals, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
All right, we're with head coach Paul Culver III of the Sheridan Generals going into Week 7, which, Coach, I mean, that's just crazy to think that we're already in Week 7. But your team's undefeated, 6-0, and you're going up against the Philo Electrics, who are 5-1 this week. And I do want to touch on the game last week, though, against Riverview, a big 62-0 shutout win. But you had 7 different players score in that game, which I think it's always great when you can get a bunch of players they can all have their hand in the cookie jar a little bit, but you get a bunch of backups in the game and everything. What was that like to just kind of get some new faces into the game? They all get some touches, a bunch of guys get into the end zone, and just all around a fun win for your team.
It was a fun win. Anytime you win, it should be fun. You have expectations and maybe think you have room to improve, but it was really great to see some of the guys that haven't necessarily got as many touches, like you said, get big time plays and get an opportunity to be successful. And At a place like Sheridan, we're very fortunate that we have 60 kids on the varsity, which means there's probably some juniors and even some really good sophomores not playing a lot on Fridays, and so good to see them. Good to see them get out there.
Now, looking at this game, with Philo, and I guess really the last couple of weeks of the year, because you got Tri-Valley coming up in a few weeks as well. Like having a game like that against Riverview, where you can get a lot of backups in, that I imagine that's got to be great for you to kind of preserve the health of some of your key starters on offense and on defense as you get ready to kind of enter this gauntlet towards the end of the year with like Philo, Tri-Valley, and the rest of the teams on your schedule, and get ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, if you're going to play what is now ultimately a 16-game season, possibly to go clear to a state championship, but even just a regular season of 10 games, you're going to have bumps and bruises, bare minimum. You're probably going to have some significant injuries, so you have to develop depth. And that's a major difference as you move up through the divisions, as you go from 7, 6, 5 all the way up to Division 1, is the depth. And so we're Division 4/3 team. We've always been 3, but we're Division 4 this year. And we have good depth. We don't have great depth, so we still have to continue developing it. And our staff coaches the freshmen every day. We coach the freshmen every day, the sophomores every day, the juniors every day, because we're developing next year's depth this year. We were developing this year's depth last year, because you never know when you're going to need somebody. You're one twisted ankle away from the next man up.
Now with Philo this week, their backfield is very talented, very good. Talon Preston, their quarterback, and their running back Talon Bailey. I mean, they are the primary ball handlers, I guess, when it comes to running the football, and they always have noses for the end zone. They're very physical, tough runners. Kind of similar to the matchup you had against John Glenn, where like you have Noah Winland and Lincoln Gilcher who are running the ball primarily, but I mean, how are you looking to defend them this week? Because I know it's kind of a similar matchup, sort of like John Glenn, where they're going to run the football primarily, maybe throw it a little bit. But how do you defend like Preston and Bailey, who are such physical runners, and they're always fighting for extra yardage, no matter the down, distance, time left in the game, the score?
So, as overly simplistic as this answer sounds, alignment assignment stance, we call that a level 1 football player. So at no point can they have a formation that catches us off guard. It gives them some type of a leverage advantage or a numbers advantage against our defense, so they can outblock us at the point of attack. And so we hammer that, right? And then second one is block destruction. You're not going to tackle someone of those two backs that you were talking about. You're not going to tackle someone of their quality if you're also being blocked. You have to have crossed that blocker off the list. Block destruction. He cannot be part of the equation anymore. You have destroyed that block. You have moved past him. And then you move to level 3, which is excellent tackling. And I tease some of our baseball players. People always say that the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball. I disagree. The hardest thing to do in sports is to tackle someone in the open field. It's borderline impossible if you give somebody a full speed head start and tell them that you have to get them to the ground. Like, that's so hard. And so you rep it like crazy. And when you have somebody of their skill set, it's very hard to do. So we have to be gap sound, alignment assignment, stance sound. We have to get off blocks because they have some big linemen that do a nice job. Block destruction, and we have to tackle well.
Now, offensively, I want to know how you're going to attack in the passing game, because Seth Henning for Philo, I mean, once you get in the red zone, like he's got a couple of these plays this year where ball gets in the red zone and somehow he just comes up with a clutch interception that just kind of turns the tide of a game. So are you he's just a great corner. So are you planning to maybe like run some pass plays that are away from his direction? Are you just going to straight up attack him? Like, what do you do with a guy that has such a nose for the football like that? He's just a ball hawk, and he just makes plays defensively.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I mean, the kids that are most dangerous on another team are the kids that make plays. They do something above and beyond their job. So yeah, your quarterback, your receivers have to identify him. You have to look for what you believe is the best matchup. I believe in our kids. I believe in our kids' ability to get open. I definitely believe in Caden Sheridan's ability to put the ball on the money despite tight coverage. But I know exactly what you're talking about. I couldn't have said his name, but the play that he made against Morgan was an incredible break on the ball. That Morgan ran a great route, a great combo to get the I think his name's Searles, the number 8 kid, open,
Yep.
and he's open. It's a crucial touchdown in a game, and next thing you know, that kid flashes in the screen. I was like, whoa, that's a heck of a break for a high school DB. So, yeah, you got to be aware of him at all times.
Now, finally, Coach, I want to know what it's like going up against Dirk, because I mean he's been around Philo for a while, and he talked about the other day like going up against you. Like,
All right, we're back here on Stadium Drive, and we have a special guest from Indian Valley High School. The senior class president, Natalie Holbrook, is here. Natalie, thanks so much for being here, by the way. This is great to have a live guest in on our show. How are you tonight? I mean, it's a great night for some football, and you're super involved in media, which I love, but how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited for this game tonight. I look forward to these Friday night lights. You got to soak it up, especially being the senior year. And it's just a blast. I love being out here.
How's school going for you this year? Senior year, it's obviously like the end of the road is coming,
right.
But obviously new journeys ahead as well. But how's the school year going for you?
Right. The school year's going pretty great. I'm having a blast. My school I've had the privilege of being allowed to work, kind of in the middle of school. So I go to school to get my classes done, and then I go and I'm allowed to work and, work on what drives my passion.
I love that. So how did you get involved doing media? Because I've seen you're walking around with the camera, you're taking photos and videos and everything. How did you get involved with media? Because not a lot of high schools around this area have that connection with either, local media or just have their own program set up to, get involved in digital media, do broadcasting, take pictures, take videos and all. Like, how did you get involved with that? Where did the interest come from?
Yeah, okay, so my freshman year of high school, I was having some trouble. It was kind of, it was an okay kind of year. And I started announcing girls basketball games because they needed an announcer.
Really?
Yeah, so I was announcing, and one of these teachers, they came up to me, and it was Mr. Herman. He came up to me, and he was like, hey, you got to reach out to our Braves Nation communications teacher.
Yes.
You need to join this club. And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, no, you seriously need to join it. So I joined the club, and I met Mr. Davis. That's our media teacher now. And he was like, you know what? We're going to put you on the sidelines. He's like, you are going to film on the sidelines. We need clips for highlight videos. So that's kind of where it started. But I didn't actually really start taking it seriously until last year. And so I really started getting involved, and I was like, man, you can buy a gimbal. You can make these camera shots look cool. This is awesome. So I started doing that. Colton Thomas's one throw that he had in one of our last games, it was a great throw, and I kind of threw that video up on social media, and it kind of people started looking at it. And this guy, Casey Claxton, reached out to me, and he was like, hey, I would love to have you come work full-time for us. And so I started working for him. He live streams games, so I started getting to run a camera. And, he's really just pushed me to be the person that I want to be. Mm-hmm. He's getting me out here like this.
Yes.
Casey had reached out to you guys and was like, hey, you really need to talk to her. So Casey's really the reason why, I'm here. And I love it. I've found a passion for it.
I love that so much. It's a great story because we just don't, not a lot of high schools have that kind of connection or have programs in their schools that can do that stuff. That's great. Now, you're also the senior class president.
Yes.
What's totally involved with that? Because I never did anything like that in school. And obviously, I was good friends with the person who was our senior class president. But, what's involved with it? How are you involved with your senior class, but also, I guess, with the school, and what's all involved in being your class president?
Right. So my freshman year of high school, I was like, you know what? Let's just throw it up there. I was like, I don't really know what it means, but I heard it looks good on college applications. So I was like, let's just try it out. So I started throwing my name out there, making all those campaign posters or whatever.
Right.
I won, and I've been the class president since freshman year.
Amazing.
I don't really do a lot, I'll be quite honest with you, but I like holding that standard to myself because it just reminds me.
It's a good title to have.
To be a good leader, you know? You gotta make an impression on people, and somebody's always watching, That's something that I live by. And I like holding that title. It keeps my head on straight, to be honest with you.
Now, I want to know what your plans are after you graduate, because obviously you're going to do something in media. Where are you going to go to school?
Right.
What's the end game for you, I guess, as well? After college, I mean, you may not know, which is totally fair if you don't know the answer. But, because I'm sure you're going to try a bunch of different things. But where are you going to go to school? What are you going to do? And what's, I guess, the end game, at least in your mind right now, for your career?
Right. So I actually did not want to go to college. I had no interest in it. I was like, when I get out of here, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm going to go, just pursue my own media, try and run my own business. But that's kind of changed because I have seen these people on the sidelines that are taking pictures and videos for these big media sports teams, for these big sports teams and media teams. And that is what I want to do. I want to be on the sidelines. I want to be taking those pictures. I want to be, videoing that. But, I'm kind of just here. Wherever the journey leads me, I might do something for a few years and then something else comes along and try that out. I'm pretty flexible with what I want to do, but it definitely is going to be media focused.
I love that.
I'm looking at going to Kent. So
nice. Amazing.
That's what I'm looking at. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, last question for you before I let you go and you do your thing. This game tonight, how do you think it's going to go? Because obviously it's been a great rivalry. The last 10 years, it's 5-5, both of these teams.
Right.
And Garaway's won the last 3. The 3 before that is Indian Valley, and then back and forth the rest of the 10 years.
Right.
How do you see this game going tonight? Because I think a lot of points could be put on the board.
Absolutely.
But it also could be like a defensive showdown as well. Like, it could go either way.
Right.
But either way, I think it's going to be a good game.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think coming out here tonight, I was talking about this. And I think that if we play how we played last week against Sandy Valley, we came out looking like a whole different team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we had our A game on. If we come out there and we do that tonight, I think that we will win this game.
Well, we're excited to watch it. I'm really looking forward to it. Garaway is on an incredible run right now, and Indian Valley's playing really well, and it's a big IVC matchup. But, Natalie, thanks so much for stopping by.
Hey, thank you.
I appreciate it. But we'll get into some interviews here with the coaches that are in this game tonight. Thanks so much to Natalie, again, the senior class president here at Indian Valley High School. But here's head coach Matt Lancaster of the Indian Valley Braves getting ready for Garaway tonight here on Stadium Drive.
All right, so we're here with Matt Lancaster of the Indian Valley Braves, 4-2 going into Week 7 as they take on the Garaway Pirates. And Coach, I really appreciate your time joining me here today. And I kind of want to talk about this matchup against Garaway going into Week 7. But before we kind of get into the game plan for them, how you're going to stop them and everything, I do want to start with your quarterback, Sam Carter, who I feel like he's had a really underrated year. I mean, I feel like, in my opinion, at least the running offense, the rush offense has just been so powerful for you. It's been driving the train for everything that you've done for your team offensively, but I feel like he's kind of just been underrated as far as like how efficient he's been. He only had 2 incompletions last week and he threw it almost 20 times. He came off an injury last year. Like, how do you evaluate the way he's performed through the first 6 weeks of the year, coming off the injury last year, but leading this team to the 4-2 start that they've had?
Yeah, well, and even to piggyback off what you said about his stats last week, I think he was 17-19 or 15-17, something like that. And he only had 2 incompletions. One of the incompletions was a drop touchdown pass wide open. The other one was just a flat out drop by our wide receiver. So, he was really efficient, and he's been really efficient, throughout the year. Obviously, we're known for our running attack. We like to run the football. But anytime that you can be a little bit more balanced and add that passing threat in there, and especially if it's a guy that can do it efficiently and limit mistakes and make good reads, he's come such a long way in being able to read the field and make good decisions, and his arm's gotten stronger and he's got a lot more confidence. So yeah, he's been really a key for our offense this year. And we've looked to build upon that passing game and utilize him a little bit more. And we know we're going to have to be able to do that moving forward too.
Yeah, now you have the threat of being balanced, because you primarily running the football, but now with him being able to throw the football like he does, you have that threat of being balanced now, which is great. But I do want to talk about the rushing attack, though, because Grady Kinsey had 123 yards last week and 4 touchdowns. Colton Thomas is kind of a guy that can run, and you can throw it to him as well. He had over 100 total yards last week, and he's been doing that all year for you. And he's also a tackling machine defensively and just has a nose. Like, anytime wherever the ball is, he's going and getting it, however which way he does it. Like, talk about those guys in your backfield, but also like how have they helped your team this year? Obviously, they're putting up numbers running the football, but like just leading your team offensively, and then like Colton on defense, like he's just been a monster for you.
Yeah, Colton's he's one of our captains, and he's a 4-year starter. Started since his freshman year at DB, and then the last 3 years at receiver as well. He's just grown in the game so much. He's such a heady kid, and he works so daggone hard. as do most of our kids. But he's just been a great leader this year. He's added that dimension of taking control of the team and putting the younger guys on his back, including guys like Grady, who, while Grady's a leader, he's still only a sophomore. He just happens to be a very good football player for being a sophomore. But being able to spread the ball out between those two guys and then other guys that contribute, like Tanya McComb and Jackson Bircher, at tight end, finally having a tight end catch some passes this year, and Eric Golder and Tyson Pryor coming back this year. So we got, I tell people, any other year, if it were a traditional Indian Valley offense, Grady Kidsey would probably have 1,200 yards rushing by this time of the year or coming up here pretty soon. But we don't have to do that. We don't have to rely on one guy. And so we can be a little bit more dynamic and spread the ball around and make defenses worry about, the entire field rather than just stopping the run and whatever tailback is back there for Indian Valley having to deal with that. And when you got Colton out at the receiver, or we line them up at quarterback sometimes, and or getting the ball out of the backfield on a handoff, we think it makes our offense a little bit more dynamic than it's been in the past, and which obviously makes it tougher to defend.
I have no doubt that you guys are going to score some points against Garaway this Friday, but I mean, how are you going to stop them defensively? Because you mentioned you've been very efficient on offense, haven't turned the ball over a whole lot, but Garaway hasn't really turned the ball over a lot either. They've only had 3 turnovers all year. Brady Geibel's a huge part of that, playing quarterback for them. He can run, he can throw. He's very dynamic as a quarterback. Jensen Garber's a great wide receiver. Dylan Sunland's a fantastic running back, and they've outscored their opponents this year 233-38. So they've just been kind of on an insane run offensively this year. What's the plan defensively as far as just because, like you mentioned with your offense, people have got to cover more of the field. Like you've got to cover kind of the whole field against this Garaway team. So what do you do defensively against this high-powered offense that the Pirates have?
Sure, good question. And come stopping their offense gonna help by us being able to move the ball and execute offensively too, because we haven't done that the last 2 years against these guys. They've shut us out for 2 straight years, haven't put any points on the board. So offense being able to execute is going to help out our defense. But they do have a great offense. Quarterback's doing a good job for them. The Garber kid's a really good receiver, and I know that the running back isn't very big, but he runs hard. You don't need to look at his roster size or anything like that. You just see it when he plays. He runs hard and he's good. But I think the strength of their offense is their offensive line. Their offensive line is really good. They were last year, and they're really good again this year. So limiting big plays, and taking advantage and moving the chains offensively and keeping their offense off the field, I think is going to be a big key for Friday night.
Well, we're looking forward to watching, Coach. We're going to be there. It should be a big-time matchup, 6-0 Garaway and 4-2 Indian Valley. And I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk football for 5 or 6 minutes. But best of luck in this game Friday and the rest of the way. And go make another deep run in the playoffs this year.
All right. Thanks a lot, Will.
And in the win last week against Sandy Valley for the Indian Valley Braves, these 2 key players right here, running back Grady Kinsey and Colton Thomas, who's used in the backfield and as a wide receiver. Kinsey had 123 rushing yards, 4 total touchdowns, and 10 tackles defensively. Colton Thomas, 6 carries for 42 yards, 8 receptions for 66 yards, and he also had over 10 tackles, 11 tackles, and an interception, a nose for the football. Wherever it is, he's going after it, offensively or defensively. He's just taking it from people, and he's going to run with it. And these are the 2 key guys for Indian Valley tonight as they take on Garaway. But now let's get into the interview with head coach Jason Wallach of the Garaway Pirates. They're 6-0. They're outscoring opponents 238-33, or just astronomical numbers. They're playing so well. They don't turn the ball over, and it's all because of the play of their quarterback, Brady Geibel. And he has just been remarkably good this year for this football team. And he's going to talk about his offense, talk about what goes into not turning the ball over every week, only having 3 turnovers through 6 games. and getting ready for this Indian Valley team as well, who is just so physical, so good. They run the football unlike any other team that they've seen to this point in the season. And here's Jason Wallach talking about it here on Stadium.
Here with head coach Jason Wallach of the Garaway Pirates as they're 6-0 going into Week 7. And Coach Wallach, I really appreciate your time joining us today. But you're like through the first 6 weeks of the season, you're outscoring opponents 233-38. And so I get a lot of fans or media, like if outsiders looking in, they could point at something like, oh, it's the offense that's the story, it's the defense, and like. But as a coach, you coaching your guys, what do you look at as kind of the driving force behind this 6-0 run to start the year undefeated going in to Indian Valley this week?
Well, fortunately, offensively, we've been able to take care of the football, which is a big thing. I think we only have 3 turnovers on the year, and that's a huge key for us. Allows us, obviously, to keep the ball, possession of the ball, and score. And we've done a pretty good job of that. We've gotten better each week from week 1 until where we're at now, offensively as well. Defensively, we just have that philosophy, that mentality of bend but don't break, and our kids have really done a great job of that. They know the expectation. We want to shut out every week, and they work their tails off and learning their opponent, studying the scouting report, and then going out and executing. So we've been very fortunate to stay pretty healthy for the most part as a team, and just the overall success, I think, is it's a payoff from all the hard work in the offseason that these kids have put in. We all talked before about how our senior class last year, we knew that class was going to be a really good class, and this group's kind of lived in their shadows for the last 3 years, and probably even more than that. Even growing up, they just knew that 2023 class was a really good class. And so they kind of took that to heart over the winter and worked their tails off. And, the success that we've had is because of them and their attitude and their determination to be successful.
So talk to me about the turnovers then on offense, or I guess the lack thereof. You mentioned only 3 turnovers throughout the entire season to this point, and I'm sure a big part of that obviously is your quarterback Brady Geibel. He had 250 total yards last week, 4 total touchdowns. You got Jensen Garber's a great wide receiver. You got great running back. Dylan Sonlin had 126 yards and a touchdown last week. The offense just seems to be humming all year. What has gone into, is it just great decision making? Is it just great scheming, play calling? Is it matchups? What goes into just being so, you're putting up a lot of points, obviously, but being efficient while you're doing so and not turning the ball over?
It's all coaching. It's everything we've done. Obviously, totally. No, Brady has made tremendous decisions with the football. I believe he had an interception in week 1 against Bel Air, and then didn't have one again until week 5, the first play of the game against East Canton, which I know he would have really liked to have back. But he's made really good decisions with the football. He's ran it when he needs to run it. He's a patient quarterback who's willing to go through his reads and does a really nice job pre-snap for us as well. Again, kid who really understands the game, really studies the game because he wants to be good, and he really understands what defenses are throwing at him. So, so from that perspective, from the quarterback perspective, Brady's done a great job of decision making, and being patient and learning the game. Our running backs have done a great job. Dylan Sunland, as you mentioned, is a phenomenal running back, very small in stature, but huge heart. One of our strongest kids pound for pound, or the strongest kid pound for pound for us on our football team, who had some fumbling issues last year. He got thrown into week 1 when Ethan Miller went down against Bel Air and came in and actually fumbled twice, maybe even 3 times in that game. And so he's really taken that to heart and really worked hard to improve that as well.
So talk to me about prep for Indian Valley then, because they're 4-2 coming in to this week against your squad, and you defeated them last year 17-0. But they won three playoff games last year. They're a great program, great football team, and this year they've just been super tough and physical running the football. I mean, they just rack up a ton of yards rushing. It seems like every week. What's prep been like this week for them going in to this week 7, as you try to move to 7-0?
We've had a great week, to be honest. Again, our kids have really studied them, and we feel pretty confident in the aspect of knowing what they're going to be throwing at us. They run a ton of different formations, but our kids understand what they want to do out of what formations. So it's really good. Listen, Indian Valley is a great football team. It's going to be a huge challenge for us. We know that. They've traditionally been the top of the IVC ever since they joined the league. Like you said, they've made the long playoff run last year, the regional finals. We know we really have our hands cut out for us. Will be our biggest challenge of the year, trying to stop the run for sure. Try to get them in uncomfortable situations, hopefully. But they've thrown the ball really well this year as well. Carter's done a great job coming back from his injury from last year and leading that offense. And, you got the Thomas boy. They're very skilled, very athletic, very, very well coached and disciplined. They don't make many mistakes, which I think is one thing that they've really improved on from last year. I think penalties hurt them in critical situations last year, and they've really improved in that aspect of the game. So we know we have our hands full. If we get to 7-0, that's awesome. But we got a lot of football to play. We believe we have a lot of football to play. And hoping to get that week 11 and make a nice tournament run. So this will definitely be a game that will prepare us for that tournament run, hopefully, as we know that, there's going to be some tough competition down the road as well. But this is a first-class program with first-class coaches and going to be a great challenge for us for sure.
Well, we're looking forward to watching on Friday. We'll be there for this big-time matchup in the IVC, and best of luck this Friday, but the rest of the way as well. And keep this train rolling, man. I'm excited watching you guys, and best of luck.
Appreciate it, Will. Thanks a lot, and we love what you guys do for us.
The guys tonight for Garaway leading the offense, Brady Geibel, as I mentioned before. We heard from Coach Wallach, 202 passing yards and 2 touchdowns last week against Claymont, along with 43 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And Dylan Sunland, beast of a running back. Not the biggest guy in the world, but runs with power. 126 yards rushing and a touchdown last week, and 8.4 yards per carry. Almost picking up a first down just about every time he touches the football. Pretty incredible kid. And this offense, high-powered for Garaway, is going to be tough for Indian Valley to handle tonight. But let's take a look at some games going on around the area here this evening. We'll start with Eastern and Northeastern Ohio here in Week 7. So Sandy Valley is at Ridgewood, Aurora at Talmadge, Union Local at Cambridge, John Glenn at Maysville, a big MVL game, Meadowbrook at Coshocton, looking to rebound after losing to John Glenn last week, Tri-Valley at Riverview, Crooksville at West Muskingum, Licking Heights at Zanesville, Akron East at Firestone, and then Sheridan Philo, which we talked about at the top of our show. And then looking around Central and Western Ohio tonight, Beaver Creek at Centerville, Dublin Kaufman at Olentangy Orange, Dublin Scioto, Franklin Heights, Gahanna at New Albany, Lyndon McKinley at Granville, Heath at Utica, Hilliard Davidson at Hilliard Bradley, Jonathan Alder at London, Thomas Worthington at Olentangy, Upper Arlington at Olentangy Liberty, and Circleville at Hamilton Township. Those are the games going on around the area, Columbus area, and in Southeast Ohio as well. Bunch of big games as we approach, Week 7. We're in Week 7 now, and then 8, 9, 10 as we approach the playoffs. So great stuff. But one final note on this Garaway Indian Valley football game, and specifically Garaway. Just an interesting streak to note, and this was on Twitter at Ohio F50, Ohio Fantastic 50. This is just an insane stat, and I have to look at my phone and read it to you because it's just too insane to believe. But Sugar Creek Garaway takes their 26-game regular season win streak, which is the 4th longest right now, to Division IV Indian Valley tonight. So a 26-game regular season win streak, and the Pirates have gone 32 games without allowing 30-plus points in a game. That's also the 4th longest active streak. That's just insane. And so that gets put to the test tonight against Indian Valley, this big-time IVC matchup, and we're excited to watch it. But I really appreciate all of you being here tonight, branching out into the IVC. This is great to, we love the MVL and we love all the schools around that area. But to kind of branch out, especially as big a game as this is in the IVC, this is really good stuff. Great facility here, great landscape. Tons of fans are pouring in right now, and we're super excited for this one tonight. We want to thank our sponsors again, Max Effort Muscle, for the great protein, the shirts for the student sections. We appreciate all of their support all the time, but we'll see you in Stadium Drive Week 8. Make sure you follow us on all the socials for updates on this game and other games going on around Ohio that we're covering. But we'll see you at Stadium Drive Week 8, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you.